Hello and welcome to today's story behind the song. Today's song is Take Me Down to the River. It's a song that wasn't on the initial album release, but it got released a little bit later. For some reason, this song took a long time to write. I'd come up with the main riff even when we were recording the first album, but it hadn't been completed. And then even when we went into the studio and recorded the second half of the album, doing Colorblind, Money and Tower of Strength, it still wasn't finished. And it took a little bit longer. And then eventually we did record it with Chris Sheldon. It was released as a single. And then I believe the record company re-released the album and that song was put onto it so that you could buy that song on the album. Where it originated from was, guitar players, they have a desire to come up with a riff that will live on. Over the years, if I think about songs like it's the way that a song is instantly recognizable as soon as the opening notes are played, and so it came from my desire to come up with one of those. The opening riff is and then there was what I would call a secondary riff. So the song was built around those two riffs. The lyrics, over the years I've worked with a lot of great songwriters, but the one who taught me the most about songwriting is Phil Mock from UFO. He had a way of writing lyrics where you would develop characters and places and stories, and he was a master at that. When I worked with him, he'd had years and years of touring and writing songs, but I was kind of in awe of the way that he approached songs. He would just come up with ideas and I was just thinking, where on earth did that come from? So he had an unbelievable talent for that, and he was the person that kind of introduced me to writing stories within songs. So the story within Take Me Down to the River isn't the most complicated of stories, but nevertheless it's a story. The song was recorded at Metropolis Studios. The producer was Chris Sheldon. We actually asked him to produce the second album, but he turned us down because we weren't cool enough. He was a good engineer, good at getting sounds and stuff like that. Producers like Keith Olsen are rare, and the reason they stand above the others is because of their ability to work on top line melodies and arrangements and just take things to another level. Chris was more of an engineer, really good at getting sounds and stuff like that. But I learned a lot. Every time I work with someone, I try to learn from them, and he was definitely a good engineer. In terms of the song live was a big song for us. It was incorporated into our live set very quickly and became one of the biggest songs of the live show. It was a song that allowed the musicians to generate a lot of energy on stage. That manifested out into the audience, and then the audience sort of came back, and it's a big song within sort of Skin history. If I was to add on another segment to this, I always try to put two things together. For young musicians, or not necessarily musicians, anyone in life, music is very much built upon opinions. Probably the most important opinion you can have is your own. You have to be true to yourself. You think about your career as a long-term thing. You know, I've just been on tour, playing songs from a 30-year career, and a song that I wrote 30 years ago is right next to a song that I wrote like a year ago. You know, so when you're putting your project together, don't think short term, think long term. And how is this all going to fit into a legacy of music? You know, when I think about even the bands that I like, my favorite bands, for instance, AC/DC and Van Halen, both of them have, you know, made some of the great, to my ears, the greatest music ever made. But they've also made things I don't necessarily like and I would never listen to. You know, and then when you put your music out, you're gonna come across a lot of people that don't like your music, and you know, hopefully you'll come across some people that do like your music as well. You know, if I think about the press and journalists, I've had my music destroyed by journalists. I've been destroyed by journalists. You know, but on the other side, I've also had some journalists that have been very supportive and written very nice things. You know, you have to assume that you're going to get like a mixture of both. If you can get 50-50, then consider yourself really lucky. And just know that over time opinions can change. You know, if I give you an instance, like one of my favorite songs ever is a song. It's a Nine Inch Nails song that was recorded by Johnny Cash. Now, I don't know anything about Johnny Cash, you know, maybe a handful of songs. But this one piece of music that he wrote right at the end of his career, to me, is one of the greatest things that has ever been created. I listened to it in awe. You know, Randy Rhoads has got no idea how much he's influenced my life as a musician. You know, so the idea of music is for it to be timeless, and great music will be timeless, and people may discover your music after you've died. You know, if you think about the great composers, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, you know, their music lives on. And so the most important thing as a musician is your devotion to the creation of music, not for adoration, not for financial gain. The underneath it all, the driving force behind you playing is to create something that will live on and add to this incredible legacy of music. You know, whether it be Jimi Hendrix, whether it be Stevie Ray Vaughan, Randy Rhoads, you know, all of these musicians who are some of my favorites, they have no idea of the influence that they had on me, but their music will live on. This is kind of my approach to music. I know there's lots of people that don't like the music that I've written. I know there's many people that don't like me, you know, but ultimately the only thing that anyone's going to remember is the music. So try and sort of not lose sight of that, and don't let the other stuff that is out there stop you from creating music, because ultimately that's all that's important. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, interesting, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully it wasn't boring. And that's the last segment of this whole little batch of songs that came from the first Skin album. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.